All right, everyone. Welcome to Notary something. Notary 201 is what it is. Yeah. Notary 201, bonds, insurance, notarial certificates. And thank you for joining me. Thank you for coming back if you attended yesterday's as well. I am Josh Hernandez, and I am the admin for the Notary Loan Signing Agent Training Facebook group, a free resource for new notaries. Before we begin, as usual, please try to keep yourself muted unless it's time to ask a question. And we will have time, hopefully, at the end of this to do some Q&A. I'm going to try to skip through it as best as I can, as thorough as I can, without sacrificing the actual what do you call it, knowledge of it and intention of it. We do have a lot of material to cover in such a short amount of time. And my goal with these series is to kind of crawl, walk, run, right? Get you kind of one step at a time. So if we roll out another one on the same subject, it'll go a little bit deeper and then a little bit deeper with more examples of different scenarios and so on and so forth. But for now, one thing at a time, all right? If you could do me a favor, please type your name in the chat box for attendance purposes. And also, if you can type in the amount of time that you have as a notary, or if you don't have any time as a notary and you're thinking about being a notary and you're just kind of taking this class to brush up on stuff, just type in 0. But if you could please type that into the chat, I'd truly appreciate that. That'll give me an idea of how far deep into this to go to and how far to keep it back a little bit. All right. So if you do that now, I really appreciate that. Perfect. Okay, 0. I dig it. I dig it. So anything I say is going to be great. 3 months, good stuff. All right, that's a unique name there, Miss Sharon. 18328. I wonder if that's a secret pin to something. All right. Let's see, 20 plus years. God bless. What are you doing here? That's awesome. Thank you so much. 16 years. Good old battle, Miss Melissa. All right, 2 months, 2 months, 2 months. All right, good. So it's a good little mixture. Both sides of the spectrum. All right. Okay, I see what you're saying, Marissa. Right on. All right. Okay. All right. Time to expand. All right. So let's get this party started. Let me share my screen and we can knock this out. All right. If for whatever reason something isn't showing up right, please unmute yourself and stop me from embarrassing myself. Huh? All right. Here we go. Hopefully everybody can see the screen. And minimize that. All right, there we go. All right, so Notary 201, bonds, insurance, notarial certificates. I'm going to be covering more of the notarial certificates in this one because there's only so much we can do with bonds and insurance. All right. So again, what this training is, it's a deeper dive into bonds and insurance, but more specifically into notarial certificates. It's meant for notaries with all experience levels, but it is also meant to follow Notary 101, the Learning the Basics class that we did yesterday. What it's not a state-specific course. None of these 100 and 200 series courses or classes will be. And it's not an all-inclusive look at everything that is to do with notary on these subjects. And it is not training specifically on signing agent items. Okay, it's going to be very generalized. We will be mentioning some stuff for signing agents or that pertains to that part of it, but that is not the intent of this course. All right, so what this training will cover is exactly what we just mentioned a minute ago. You know, insurance, surety bonds, oaths of affirmations, jurats, acknowledgements, some final advice, and then some more special gifts. Once again, I'd like to remind you to mute yourself if you have the ability to. Not sure who is unmuted, but please check your mics. All right, so we'll start off with the surety bond piece. As we talked in Notary 101, I took you through most of the basic knowledge of the bond and the insurance part, right? So here's a quick recap on the important stuff. All right, a notary bond, a surety bond is required by the state, and E&O insurance, the errors and omissions insurance, is optional. Notary bonds protect clients from your actions, but the E&O insurance protects you from your own actions. The notary bond is a line of credit almost, right? Where if you have to use it, you know, then you got to pay it back. The E&O insurance is just like any other insurance where if you use it, you don't have to pay it back, but your insurance rates and premiums will probably get a little bit higher. For the notary bond, Well, like I said, you have to reimburse it. Insurance, you don't. It's just a policy that's covered. And then you will have to buy another notary bond once pay out the first one, but not insurance coverage or the coverage. You just have to pay it higher or a higher premium afterwards. So my only advice is this. There's no way that anyone can explain everything about all these items, all right? You'll need to speak to the representatives of the companies that you are getting quotes from and ask them about their coverages and all that kind of good stuff in order for you to understand how it impacts your personal situation, right? Me as a notary, signing agent, business owner with other industries, my insurance is going to be covering as much as possible for all those at once than if you're just doing notary work. So keep that in mind. The only other piece of advice I want to give you is make sure that you insure yourself based on what your risk could be. Even in our own group, we saw a gentleman who said that he only carries $25,000 of insurance. He works with multi-million-dollar deals, and he has a law background, so he's comfortable with that. That's fine, right? But at the end of the day, it's kind of like car insurance, right? Liability versus full coverage. If you are driving around a vehicle that is, old, banged up, and you really don't care too much about it, and if it gets into a wreck, as long as the other person is covered, you don't care what happens with the car, with your own car, that's fine. And once you're, if you have another car that's more pricier and you get into a wreck, right, you might want to have that full coverage. That way you can get that car replaced and cover yourself and not have to owe and be upside down and that kind of good stuff. So those are 2 points to keep into consideration, please. All right, so this next one. Ooh. Miss Yasmin, if you can please mute yourself. Appreciate you. All right, moving on to the next side. So notarial certificates. The elements are going to be explained for you, all right? So another recap for Notary 101. All right, we talked about oaths and affirmations, right, as a standalone piece, right? Those are done without having to use your stamp, without actually putting anything on paper. Those are written or not written, they're only spoken. We talked about acknowledgements, acknowledging that it's that person's signature. We talked about jurats, which house oaths and affirmations. And this time with a stamp and paper certificate that comes along with it. That's what creates the jurat. We talked about signature witnessing, and we talked about copy certification. So there are specific elements and generalized elements that are attached to every single notarial certificate, okay? Whether it be any of the ones that we just mentioned, if it involves paper and it involves your signature and stamp, it's gonna have these 4 elements, all right? Number 1 is the venue. That is going to be the current physical location of where the notarization is taking place. The second one is going to be some kind of statement of presence and identification. All right, this acknowledges that the signer is in front of you and that you verified ID, because no matter what type of notarial action you are performing, you are always, always, always having that person in front of you, and you are always verifying their identity. Number 3, the notarial type verbiage. All right, this tells you what type of notarization you're going to perform. It's either an acknowledgement verbiage, jurat verbiage, or a copy certification verbiage. All right, it's going to be some variation or deviation up as such, and we'll be seeing some examples of that here in a few slides. Then number 4 is your notary elements. All right, those are the important details about who is performing the notarization. Typically, it's your name and signature, the date of the notarization, your seal, and your commission information. All right. Numbers 2 and number 3 are commonly referred to as the body. So most places refer to these elements, the venue, et cetera. But number 2, number 3, people just say, hey, that's the, in the body of the notarial certificate. That's what they're referring to, is just the verbiage that's in between the venue and your notary signature elements. And I'll be showing you some examples of this here in a minute. So it's important to know requirements of notarial certificates information is always state dependent. Everything in our notary industry is state dependent. There are some rules of thumb, there are some best practices, there are some universally accepted, XYZ, but everything is always state dependent. Most are common, but some states do add a little extra. And as previously mentioned in the elements before, they're still accurate, right? So it's the details that really matter. within the body of the notarial certificate. That's what really matters. And you'll see those as it unfolds here later. You can learn more about your state's requirements on your Secretary of State website, your state primer, or your state's handbook if they have one for notaries. All right, so just as a reminder, if you took the Notary 101 or bought the replay, you have access to that PDF that has the websites hyperlinked for the Secretaries of State. But just as well, you could also just Google it and or visit the National Notary Association's website, and you'll be just fine too. There's ways to find it. So let's break down these elements. All right, here's a color-coded visual of the elements that I just listed. All right, there's the body. And there is the notarial elements that I was referencing earlier, okay? The body verbiage will slightly change depending on whether it's a jurat or an acknowledgement, and I'll be showing you that here shortly, but the elements are still the same, okay? We'll be diving deeper into each notarial certificate in a minute, but you'll see in yellow is the venue, state and county. Orange is giving you the verbiage. The before me, the blue is telling you that that's, indicates the presence of the person being in front of you. On the exact date of the notarization, the signer, who the signer was, and then down into your notary elements piece. All right, so take a minute and kind of absorb that because we'll be seeing variations of this here in a second. All right, so first up, oaths and affirmations. Okay, this is a solemn declaration with legal consequences that are made before notary. Both are designed to compel a person to tell the truth. Both are required to be audible, meaning spoken. Okay, they can't shake their head saying yes or shake their head saying no. You have to hear the words. Okay, and here are the requirements. So number one, the person has to physically be in front of you or before you. Okay, unless expressly authorized by state law to be issued differently, which is typically happening for Ron and stuff like that. But for the most part, 90% of the time, your state's law is going to require them to be physically in front of you. Number two, the identification is verified. You're always verifying ID. Number three, a person raises their right hand, which is optional in most states. Number four, the notary says the ceremonial formalities to the person. We'll go over those in a minute. And that's the whole, do you solemnly swear type stuff. And then the number five, the person audibly responds with a yes or an I do. Again, it has to be verbal. It cannot be a nod of the head or sure or anything like that. It has to be, concrete. And then the notary records it as a journal entry in their journal. All right. Some states like California have specific wording. Some states don't specify specific wording. So it's your duty as the notary for that state to know what your state requires. Okay. Especially if you plan on going into Ron in the future, or if you happen to accidentally notarize or put somebody under oath or an affirmation and they know what they're talking about and you don't, it's going to be rather embarrassing and illegal, but same. So with oaths and affirmations, what's the verbiage? All right, what's the wording? So here are some examples. First one up, do you solemnly swear that the statements in this document are true to the best of your knowledge and belief, so help you God? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the statements in this document are true to the best of your knowledge, so help you God? And then finally, do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the statements in this document are true to the best of your knowledge, so help you God? Remember, if you're in California, this is definitely not your wording, okay? So I apologize for anybody who's in California that is on this live or watching the replay, but those are not examples that you can use. All the other states though, all right, congratulations. It's going to be very similar to this, if not this exactly. And you'll notice on this verbiage right here that we bounce around between solemnly swearing and affirming. Again, swearing is going to be some sort of swearing by a supreme being, and affirmation is going to be more affirming and swearing upon the individual's honor, not to a supreme being. Both of them work. Has to be one or the other. The signer has to choose. Okay. Some states do allow also that you combine them, just as it is on your screen right now. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that blah, 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 blah. And you can even end it with so help you God. And as long as they say yes or I do, it is a natural given that they agree with one of those two phrases. Okay. So I wouldn't wrap my head around that too much unless your state specifies that you have to segregate them ahead of time. Okay. So that's that piece right there. So what does it look like? You'll looks just like this. Okay, again, this oath and affirmation is a type of notarization, but you're not using a notarial certificate. Okay, so there's no paper involved, there's no stamp. So it would look like this. The notary would say, do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the statements in this document are true to the best of your knowledge, so help you God? And then the person would say yes. And then that's it. You would just record that in your journal. And you're done. That's a whole notarial piece right there. All right. So let's move on to something a little bit more common. All right. So a jurat. Okay. These are the elements of a jurat. Now remember, jurats house oaths and affirmations. Okay. You can't have a jurat without an oath or affirmation. All jurats will have an oath or affirmation, but not all oaths or affirmations are part of a jurat. Okay. So jurat elements. All right. Very similar to what I showed you at the very beginning. In orange, it gives you the verbiage telling you that it is an oath, saying sworn to. Sometimes you'll see affirmed, but it's the same concept. That's what triggers you to know that it is a jurat. All right, and that's what triggers you to have to put that person under oath or have them do an affirmation. Subscribe before me. Subscribe just means that they're signing before you, establishes a presence, meaning that they were in front of you when they did it, or they're in front of you at the time of notarization on that specific notarization date, and who is actually signing, and then your notarial pieces. All right. So requirements for a jurat. All right. Now that we understand what the elements are, let's apply it to when we actually perform a jurat. So remember, the oath and affirmation can be standalone, just like we saw. But when you're going to physically stamp an actual certificate, boom, now it's a jurat. Okay. Another way to look at it is a jurat will require an oath and affirmation always. So here are the requirements. Number one, person's required to be physically before you. Identification has to be verified. The person signs in front of you. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Person raises their right hand, optional. All right. The notary says a ceremonial formalities to the person, just like we just discovered in the oath and affirmation piece. And then the person automatically or audibly says yes or I do. The notary then completes the certificate and then records it in their journal. All right. So let's look at an actual step-by-step example. Here are two examples. The one on the left is from the NNA. The one on the right is something I typed up in Google Docs based off of examples given to me by my Secretary of State's notary website. I'm showing you this for the following reason. I don't want you to overthink what it has to look like. All right, it can be fancy, it can be plain. It's the wording and the elements that are present that matter. Okay. This could technically be written on a napkin and stamped and all that kind of good stuff. It may not survive, but the point is that it's the wording and the elements that put together when executed is what creates the actual jurat. All right. So that's what I wanted to have you compare on this. Okay. On the next side, we're going to see it in action. All right. So let's see how it's performed. Let me set the scene for you guys. Okay. I'm the notary. The person is physically in front of me. I have verified their ID, and I have partially filled out the certificate as such. I filled out the state, the county, today's date, and I wrote in the name of the person who is signing. Okay. I've completed the body. All right. So I'm going to say, sir, to complete this notarization, I'll be having you swear to the accuracy of the information. Would you like to swear to God or by your honor? Person says, by my honor. Okay. Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm under penalty of perjury that the statements in this document are true to the best of your knowledge? Person says yes. I sign my notarial signature portion and I stamp my stamp. And then I record it in my journal. And that's it. That's the entire process of executing and performing a jurat. Okay. Now, obviously, there may be some more questions when you say, hey, you're gonna have to choose whether you want to swear by God or by your honor. Some people say, what do you mean? What's the difference? Blah, blah, blah. Again, you can't choose for them, not legally, but you can give them the definition. All right. And the easier you can articulate that, the easier it's going to be with that individual signer. So now let's look at acknowledgements. All right, these are the elements of an acknowledgement. You'll notice that the only thing that changed was the wording telling us that it is an acknowledgement instead of a jurat, which is highlighted in orange. Okay, note that for acknowledgements only, the signer could have already signed before meeting you. All right, and that's okay. They don't have to sign in front of you. All right, the only time they're required to sign in front of you is when you're doing signature witnessing and jurats. All right, but for acknowledgements, they are 1000% allowed to sign before they get to you. Okay, so keep that piece in mind. What's in orange is what's changed, and that is what is telling you what type of certificate this is. Now, the requirements for an acknowledgement. All right. One, person's still required to be in front of you physically. Two, you still have to verify the identity. Three, the person's signature is on the document, all right, whether it was already signed or they just signed it in front of you. And number four, you complete the certificate. And five, you record it in your journal. All right, those are the requirements and the steps for completing an acknowledgement. So let's look at some examples. Again, on the left, you see one from the NNA. On the right, you'll see one that I typed up in Google Docs based off of the examples given by my Secretary of State. And just like earlier, don't overthink what it has to look like. It can be fancy, it can be plain. It's the wording and the elements that matter. All right. With that same piece, or by that same token, I want you to consider this. Can you buy pre-made certificates, acknowledgements, jurats, etc.? Yes, you can buy them in pads, you can buy them whatever, but you don't have to. You can literally type it up. On the one on the right is literally the acknowledgement that I have. All right, that's my loose leaf certificate right there. Kentucky doesn't require much, and that's what it is. So do with that what you will. Now, the steps to complete an acknowledgement. Okay, let's see it in action. I'm going to use the NNA form because most people are pretty used to this one, or I guess use it more often. So I'll set the scene again. I'm still the notary. All right. The person is physically in front of me. I've verified their identity, and I have partially filled out the certificate as such. Venue is filled out, state and county. Today's date, the date of the notarization is filled out. This particular acknowledgement form requires my name in there as well, right before me, the notary, personally appeared, and then the signer. So I've written in their name there for me. And then I say, sir, do you acknowledge that the signature on that document is yours? And of course, I'm referring to the signer's document and the signer's signature on that document, not my notarial body certificate. So I say, sir, do you acknowledge that the signature on that document is yours? Person says yes. Then I go ahead and sign my signature and stamp the stamp. And then that's it. I record in my journal, and that is a completed acknowledgement. Moving on to signature witnessing. All right, these are the elements of the signature witnessing. As you can tell, not much has changed once again. The only thing that has changed is the wording in orange, letting me know what type of certificate it is. It says signed, or sometimes it says attested, and that's what tells me that it is a signature witnessing. I am simply just making sure that that person signed their signature, and that was the person who could sign that signature. All right. Sometimes the date is in there, sometimes it's not, but the requirement is going to be based off of your state laws. So for signature witnessing, as I stated before, the person still has to be in front of you. You still have to identify that person is who they say they are. You have to witness the person sign. Kind of defeats the purpose if you don't. And then you complete your certificate and record it in your journal. And copy certification. All right, our last little tidbit for the notarial certificate piece. Here are the elements. All right, in Notary 101, we talked about what copy certifications were. You'll notice again that one of the only things that's changed is the wording in orange. Right, I certify that this is a true and correct copy of. That is your cue that this is a copy certification notarial certificate. All right, now technically, I did kind of take out the notarization date on this one. Most states don't require it for copy certifications. But if you had a date in there, that's fine. It's not wrong. All right. Just like anything else, you can add to, but you can't take away. So if your state only requires the venue, the certified, this is straight true copy, possession of kind of thing, and then your notarial stuff, you want to add anything else in there in the body of it, you can, right? You can add today's date, you can add, your name in there, by me, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. As long as you are not taking away from the intent of the form and you have at least the minimum requirements that your state requires for that certification, you are golden. And that is it. Congratulations. You have a good amount of knowledge and background knowledge on notarial certificates to make you dangerous. Okay. So some final advice: don't let the craziness of any form scare you. I didn't cover any forms that go into loan signings, etc. Some of those can sound or look intimidating, but it's not. All of them boil down to the same elements that I just described in this video. Okay. The notarial wording is what matters. That's the important piece. All right. As long as the wording meets or exceeds your state's requirements, you are 1000% golden. Every notarization will be some form of those elements. All right. But again, every little trick or what might happen, what may not happen is for another class. Okay. Learn these basics, know what differentiates between acknowledgement, jurat, copy certification, etc. And that basis and that foundation alone will allow you to tackle any kind of situation that comes up, whether there's one signer, two signers, how they're signing, etc. Now, the way they sign their name, the way they do this and that is a whole different class. Okay. For now, your piece as a notary is that notarial part for that certificate, no matter what you're notarizing. So that foundation right there, we can build upon, and you won't have to worry about breaking laws or what's right or wrong. I just explained what is correct. Okay. And always, again, every single class, everything that you get from anybody, always verify with your state laws on what your state requires, because your state trumps everybody else. Okay. Mortgage industry, etc. If your state requires it, you need to do it. All right. So with that, if you attended Notary 101, then you know what's coming up. I have some gifts for you, and those gifts come at a price. All right. I have two gifts for you, actually. Gift number one is 90% off of the Notary 100 and 200 series replays. That's all of them. All you got to do is post a review on this class in our Facebook group and tag me. Then PM me when it's done, and I'll send you the discount code once I get the replays up there and whatnot. That review does not have to be positive or negative, just a review. Okay. Hopefully it's positive, but if it's not, that's okay. I'll work on myself. Number two, I want to offer you guys as a gift, no strings attached kind of thing, just 50% off of the live marketing to title escrow class that I have coming up on the 26th, which is next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, or 50% off of the replay, your choice. You don't have to do anything for this code. It's just a gift. Go ahead and if you plan on attending, just PM me with which code you want on that marketing class. Just PM me, I want the live one or the replay one, and I'll get that to you. I'm doing this because I truly believe that if you are wanting to go straight to title or escrow at some point, you need to learn the basics of marketing and sales. It'll go a long way. But in either case, thank you for attending, and we'll use whatever is time left. I think we have about a good 20 minutes or so for Q&A in case you have any. So I'll go ahead and stop my screen sharing if I can find where my mouse went. I don't know where it went. There we go. All right, stop right there. Bring this back up. Boom. All right, so what can I help answer for you? You can unmute yourself and ask a question. Nobody has any questions? Let me look to
I do.
Oh, Zoom
This is
user.
Linda.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
This is Linda.
Hey, Linda.
Hi. I didn't get in on your class, the 101, and I'm new at this, very new at this.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of got an idea of what you were talking about today, but how do I get the recording from 101?
You can go to www.joshuaj, I'll type it in the chat for you, .online, and that'll bring you to everywhere. That's where I'm going to house all the replays for everybody.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
No problem. And if you send me a message on Facebook, I'll go ahead and give you the same code that I'm going to give everybody else from that first live to get it at a discount, please.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll do that.
No worries. And the the question on the chat is: are these slides going to be available to us or emailed to us? Miss Michelle, unfortunately, no. They won't be emailed or presented. This is kind of a consume it while you can kind of thing. Trying to encourage more people coming onto the live so that way they can get questions answered and whatnot. But if there's certain slides that you want, like the elements piece or what have you, I think I've posted those as pictures before in the Facebook group, so those should be there for you. And at some point, I'll probably pull that apart and randomly, sporadically throughout the weeks, add them into the Facebook discussion. That way, everybody can kind of see them. Yeah. Any other questions out there?
I do. Hey, this is Pamela.
Hey, Miss Pamela.
I have a question. You did say with acknowledgement that it could be pre-signed before they get to you?
Correct. Yeah. So with acknowledgements, and a lot of people don't know that, especially and some notaries that have been notaries for a minute, but they're like bankers, or they're used to a certain way of doing the notarization pieces, which isn't wrong. But yes, acknowledgements do not have to be signed in front of you. They can be signed. They can be pre-signed, right? And if they are pre-signed, and even if they're not, it's good practice to have the signer acknowledge verbally that is their signature. Okay. If you saw them, then great. But if you didn't see them sign it and you verified that person is who they are, point to the signature and just say, "Is that your signature?" And they'll say yes, and that's good enough for you.
Okay. Another question.
Sure.
I don't mean to. What if they come with their own acknowledgement certificate?
That's fine too. Then you get to save paper.
Okay.
And as long as that acknowledgement certificate that they bring you has the required information that your state needs, you're good. If for whatever reason, and Californians typically run into this situation because, again, California is different and they have a whole bunch of extra to their stuff. So if I were to bring you saw my certificate, right? My notarization certificate. If I were to bring my Kentucky certificate to them, right, they wouldn't be able to notarize. They'd have to use their own loose leaf because they have like a whole paragraph that needs to be in there. Okay. So yeah, as long as whatever they bring you meets or exceeds your state requirements, you're golden. You can go ahead and use theirs.
Okay. And one more thing, as you were saying, what if someone comes with a documentation that does not have a certificate on it? And I saw like you printed some up. If we have the correct verbiage, then we can make copies of like acknowledgement certificates. We can do that to add it on. Most
definitely. And some states require that, like you saw if you look at the NNAs, it has a little part at the very bottom. If you're from Arizona,
Well, I'm from North Carolina. I'm in North Carolina.
Right, but I'm saying on the NNA certificate, it has if you're from Arizona, here's your piece of it. So you can always add too, right? So a good practice is to have a little verbiage in there, so you can write in what document you're notarizing. So when you attach that document, they can't just pull it away and give it to another document. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
You don't have to, unless your state requires it, but it's good practice. But yes, if they come to you with their own paper, right, and it has their stuff, it doesn't have your notarial piece, you can attach your own loose leaf certificate to it, or you can buy one of those NNA, or I think you can find them on Amazon also. It's a stamp where you can type in your state's required verbiage, and you can just stamp that on there, and that's your notarial piece, and then you can just fill in the little blanks from that stamp, and then stamp your actual notary seal. So a couple options for you.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you.
No worries. All right. What other questions do we have? Will all documents specify which notarial certificate it is, such as acknowledgement, witness, or so? Is it Satima? I hope I pronounced that correctly. So yes, right. So the certificate, right, is the verbiage, right? So that verbiage, the body of that verbiage, when we talked about the elements, the wording in there will tell you what kind of certificate it is. Okay, so if it says acknowledged before me, it's an acknowledgement. If it says sworn to or affirmed to, that is a jurat. If it is, I attest to the copy of the exact copy of blah blah blah, it's a copy certification, right? So those key words are going to be in that notarial certificate, whether they gave you the stuff or you're providing your own, but that's how you know what type of notarial certificate it is. All right. Do you have an IG for your posts and training, or only Facebook? I am only on Facebook, Miss Battle. Yeah, I have an IG, but I don't really use it for anything other than military purposes. So not yet. But maybe one day. Facebook is keeping my hands full right now. So yeah. What else? Any other questions, guys?
I have a question. Hi.
Hi.
I wondered, as you're going along, do you find the need for, I don't know if your state allows additional stamps, but like for a mini stamp, or even like the jurat or the acknowledgement stamp, do you find like the convenience or the need for those? I haven't jumped out there yet.
So I find that it is very convenient. A need for them, not for me personally, but I can see where others would have a need for it. It's very convenient. Like, I highly recommend that you get one, just because it is that convenient. It's easier to, and it's safer too. So let's say that this right here was something that I need to get notarized, right? Somebody brought this to me. All this white space right here, I could just hit that stamp, fill out the blanks, and then stamp it with my notary seal. All of it's on the same page, right? There's no likelihood of them being able to take that off and attaching it to another document. So everybody's safer all around. So for that reason, I would recommend that you get one of those kind of stamps, but you don't need one, right? It'll work just as well if this is what needs to be notarized. This is my notarial certificate, and I just attach it to the form that needs to be notarized, and that's perfectly fine too. But for that reason, on the top of my notarial certificate, I would write in, document being notarized, and then I would write in the title of the document that they gave me, just for good measure. And then I'll annotate that on my journal. Yeah.
And how about for a mini stamp? Does the normal size stamp
are golden?
Okay.
Thank you. I don't even know why people use non-mini stamps. They're awesome. They're so awesome.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries. Oh, and that reminds me, while we're on that subject, stamp versus embosser. As cool as embossers look and feel, and how awesome it is to just press it together and feel official and stuff, it's very inconvenient, right? It's good for some things. Don't get me wrong. It's good for some things, right? Stuff that where the writing can't be covered. With your ink stamp, if you cover other verbiage or lines or what have you, it not only does it mess up the integrity of your stamp, but it also kind of gets in the way of some things that's important on the document. So the embosser works great for those moments. But for the most part, if you're going to be scanning, or the person that's requiring it is needing to send it to some kind of official government office via a scan, then it's better to have the ink piece, because the embosser, you're going to have to shade it in and whatnot to make it visible on the copier or the scanner. So just food for thought. I've never owned an embosser, but I've had some of my stuff. I buy and sell land on the side, so I've had some stuff get notarized that way, and there I am having to scribble and scan it to the county and whatnot. So just food for thought on that. All right, Miss Melissa, where did you say we can leave a review for you? Oh, just anywhere on Facebook. You could just make it as a post kind of thing. That'd be perfectly fine. I appreciate you. And then send me a message after you do. That way I can revert back to it when I'm done with everything and make sure I get you a code. And then once again, that'll be 90% off of every single Notary 100 and 200 series, and 50% off of the marketing one. Okay, and then just tell me if you're going to do the marketing class. Just send me a message as to which code you want, whether for the live or for the replay. And the reason why there's a distinction is because the live one is going to be $25 and the replay is going to be $50. because marketing happens. I'm much better at the personal sales and marketing than I am at the notarial piece. I know a lot about the notary stuff, but I've been doing sales for the U.S. Army since 2013, so it's kind of a thing. What other questions can I help for you guys or answer? Nothing. My Miss Michelle, did I miss anything? Miss Melissa, did I miss anything with your years of experience? No? I think I covered it pretty well so far anyway. As in depth as we can go without just, All right. Well, if there are no more questions, then thank you so much for attending. I truly appreciate it. I'm going to try to come down from this full throttle and get ready for the next class that starts in about 20 minutes. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time. I'll talk to you later. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.